What is up, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of Father Dynasty. I'm your fatherly host, Chew, here in the manhole, here to talk a little fatherhood, fantasy football, and everything in between. And with me today is a very special guest. He is on the Mount Rushmore of fantasy analyst beards. And in fantasy football, he brings his opponents to absolute tears. Follow him on Twitter at DuBois_22. Check out his fantasy football content on, and I'll take a breath here, Football Guys, where he is the co-host of the College Football Show and co-creator of the 2023 Rookie Draft Guide, among other guides as well. Co-host and contributor with the Devy Royale, winner of the inaugural Tags Rising Star Award, and most importantly, Girl Dad, Kevin Coleman. Kevin, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to be here. A lot of fun, and I enjoyed the show sheet when I saw it, and you know how it is. It's the off season, but it's not really for us, for me at least, because I do all the rookie stuff and we kind of dive into it. But I'm glad to be here. Glad to talk to you.
Awesome. And yeah, I'll say, I know you've just been waist deep in numbers and data and everything. So hopefully this will be a little bit of a reprieve for you.
A little bit. I saw it and I was like, oh, thank God I'm not talking fantasy too much. Like there's only so much in my brain that I can get into and go into it. But no, I enjoy these things, so I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, we start out with a nice little keep, trade, cut, 3 topics specific for you. So are you ready?
Yeah, let's roll.
So I have to choose my favorite. I'm going to keep.
Oh, dear. I will trade.
This is kind of wild.
The cut is easy, and it's the last one.
Keep, trade, cut. We're, of course, all familiar with the free trade tool, keep, trade, cut. And on here, I give each guest 3 unique topics. And within each of them is 3 selections. Keep, of course, would be the best or the your favorite selection. Cut being the third. And starting off here, topic number 1, back in my day. We're the old fogies, apparently. So that was very fun to say. I was like, I feel like I've said that a couple of times to my son. So I'm like, okay, we're here now. But this one here, so this would be, you would be keeping what you think back in your day was better, and you'd be cutting what you think today is better.
Okay.
So of these 3, we've got TVs and movies kind of wrapped into one. And this would be kind of like for like the kids and everything. So
okay,
kids, TVs and movies, toys, and then the snacks or the food, that sort of thing. So what do you got?
Okay. Man, back in my day so back in our day, huh? Like, so, so keep, which one am I doing again? Sorry. I'm a slow learner here as a teacher.
No. You're good. So keep would be what back in your day you thought was better. So if you thought like TVs and movies back in your day were better, you keep that.
Okay. You know what? Movies were better. Damn right. I'm going to go with that one. Yeah. Keep. I'm going to go movies. They had more soul. You know what I'm talking about, you? Like when I watch, when I watch the movies now, these kids, like, I don't feel like the soul is there. Like, and then it's like, you know, freaking Toy Story 7. Like, there's no, like, there's none of that. Like, I'm going to keep like the movies just because to me, like, there was a lot of soul there. Lion King, man. Like, you know, you see in these like different movies that I grew up on, like there was a lot of like just soul. Roger Rabbit. Remember Roger Rabbit? I love that movie growing up. And like, there's no other Roger Rabbits. Like, it's so like, I'm going to go just because I'm old and I'm going to say the soul. So I'll keep the movies.
Love that. And yeah, I entirely agree with that. It's one of those things where like now you look at so much stuff that's being recycled and they're creating all the newer versions of what was the original movie back when we were younger. I'm like, so it was so good in the beginning that many years ago, they have to just redo that and they can't create new stuff that's stand on its own, which they have a couple, but not too many.
No, I mean, can we talk about like the live action stuff? It's awful. Okay, like live action Lion King was bad movie. Like my kids hated that movie. Like, like the live action stuff, like they're gonna ruin the Little Mermaid. I feel like like these like, did you see Flounder in the Little Mermaid preview? He's a scary looking fish, and that's not what this should be. Like they keep ruining these things. Like, and then it's just not fair. Like sometimes the classics are good.
Yeah, for some reason, things getting like better and like the quality of everything getting better. It's almost just like Michael Bay movies where it's like, all right, let's just put the most effects we can put in it. It's like, it's a kid's movie. Just let it be a kid's movie.
Yeah, just let it be a kid. Let's enjoy it. Let's have some soul.
That's right. Well, somewhat along those lines, except we're going to talk about some of the newer ones here with topic number 2. So more screen time. Some people say less. Well, so maybe we'll meet somewhere in the middle. But I know we're kind of, I myself am 31. I don't know if maybe you're a comparable age.
I'm 34. I'm a little older than you. Just a little older.
But I kind of think of, just the comparison of like, at this point, our parents are the ones that don't fully understand how to use smartphones, but our kids, when they're like toddlers, can like go buy something off Amazon Prime real quick. So it's a weird balance. We're in the middle and we kind of have to have the two meet. But for more screen time, a lot of the stuff nowadays, everything is streaming and all that. So here's 3, I would say, high profile kid shows. And I don't know if all of these apply to your kids or not, but we've got Bluey, Paw Patrol, and Peppa Pig. So what would you do for the keep, trade, and cut there?
Oh, I'm keeping Bluey, baby. Bluey is my jam. Like, real quick, Paw Patrol's overrated. Like, as when I'm watching it, like, and I'm not a Peppa at all. My kids kind of like Peppa, but like Paw Patrol's a little overrated. I would cut the hell out of Peppa. Like, but like keeping wise, like I think Bluey's nice because it's quick, it's succinct, like it's not too long. You can throw it on too, like if your kids are going to bed, and like sometimes we'll throw on like National Geographic or something like that, but sometimes we'll throw on Disney Plus, and then you have Bluey, and it's like, hey, quick little episode, and then if you want to teach about it, you can, or you can just watch. And like I think it's good for parents too. I always enjoy like cartoons that are made for parents a little bit, like movies, like, and especially like sitting there, you're like, we're gonna sit through this again. But Bluey to me teaches lessons, good for parents. It's quick, it's not like a 30-40 minute like video. It's better than YouTube. So like I'm all about the Bluey train. Like I think Bluey teaches good lessons, has some fun in it. Like I'm all about that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's funny you say that about I feel like Peppa Pig is one where when I first heard the show on TV, I was like, this cannot even be in the background for me. I was like, I will lose my mind. But I think there's some frequency in my head. I think I've tuned it out. So like, I actually can't hear it anymore if I don't want to. Now I never thought I was going to have.
You do. You have those like, so like as a teacher, I have that tendency already. So like sometimes you play, like for me, I hated Frozen. Frozen was my least favorite. Like Frozen 1, I can get away with it. Frozen 2, I hated it. I could not stand that movie. I don't know what it was. Like, and my kids, like, they went through their stage where they liked it, and I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. So like I had to zone it out like you, like, and I would just be sitting there and just kind of like, all right, I'm gonna pretend like it is, because I just thought it was a terrible movie. Like I can watch some movies over and over again, but that one I just couldn't do it.
Oh man, well I say we'll bring it back to more modern times, and this is something more specifically for you yourself as an adult. So the third one here, most gifable. And I know, oftentimes, especially like, going through Twitter, and especially, fantasy football Twitter, we have our favorites of like just go-tos that apply so frequently. But I have 3 different actors here who they're pretty well known across a number of different gifts. So for the keep, trade, cut here, I've got Steve Carell, Will Ferrell, and maybe the dark horse, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leo's got. I can cut one of these, right? Like I can just say no, stop using it.
Yeah.
So can we stop using Steve Carell? Because I'm gonna be honest, like The Office was overrated. Is this a safe space? I'm gonna say like, to be fair, and I don't know if anybody's ever met someone like this. I've only watched like 2 episodes of The Office, and I just did not like. I didn't get it. And it was our generation too. Like it came out pretty much where we were growing up. I've never been. I'm not really a TV guy either, but like I don't, and I'm such a fraud because I use those stupid gifts all the time too. And like, I've never actually seen the show. Like, I don't know how it's referring to it or anything like that. But I'm getting rid of Steve. Like Steve to me is just one of those things. It's like, I'm out. Like I'm done seeing it. I wish we need some more. We need some different people in there. I will say there's an underrated one. I like Sam Jackson. So Samuel Jackson has some good ones that I tend to go towards. So Sam, you're my guy. But yeah, I'm cutting the hell out of Steve Carell.
Fair enough. I will say, don't look at my Dunder Mifflin clock. That I am a fan of The Office. Although I will say, it was more of like appreciating it because that was back in the day when it was like you watch something on TV as it's happening. Yes. So I appreciated it in that sense. But now when it's just like basically syndicated, it's just on. I think it's Comedy Central now. Like for hours every single day. So it's something I'll have in the background. But in terms of like the rewatchability of something more like It's Always Sunny or Arrested Development or some of those ones are kind of more hold on to. So
yeah, agreed.
So a bonus question for you here. So my wife and I think about a year ago, we reclaimed our basement from our son. It was previously his Thunderdome, whatever you want to call it. We didn't actually put a real name on it, but he just destroyed things down there. But now we reclaimed it, took his toys out. We got the pool table down there. We got a dartboard, foosball table. And my wife decided for decoration to go ahead and throw up a couple of movie posters on the wall. And we had room for 7. So I got 4 and she got 3, just because we had an odd number. But ideally, she would have had 4 also. And my 4 were Anchorman, Boondock Saints, Jaws, and Goldfinger. And then she went with Pretty Woman, Harry Potter, not a specific one, just like a cool Hogwarts thing, and Mean Girls. So if you yourself had any 3 movie posters that you could pick as a decoration, what would you go with?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Any 3, huh? Any 3 movie posters. Oh, well, I gotta put Remember the Titans up. So like nice. I enjoy, that's like my favorite movie of all time. So like to me, like, and in being football related and like and stuff, and that plays a big role in my life. Definitely gonna put Remember the Titans up. I'm trying to think of some, but like you have to know like what the posters kind of look like too, because like some movie posters are crap compared to like like the movie itself. I'm gonna go one poster that I enjoy, and I do like this movie, Inception. I thought Inception had some cool posters, like the way kind of like I believe the city was kind of inverted and stuff like that. So I will throw Inception up there because I thought that was an underrated movie. So Remember the Titans, Inception. Oh man, let me think here. Endgame. I gotta put Endgame. Marvel, like Marvel Endgame. Like I'll put a Marvel. As a teacher, that was one thing that a class one year came in, that a sophomore class that loved Marvel, and then throughout the 3 years, we actually went and watched movies together. Like we actually went as a big group, and like nice. I did with Harry Potter. Like my teachers loved Harry Potter. Like we did that with some of my teachers I was really close with, and so and then they actually made me a poster, an in-game poster with all of our faces on it at the end. Like my face was Thanos, and like this guy digitally designed it. And I still have it. They all signed it too. Like it was really cool. So like I would definitely get me an in-game poster true story, I've not watched a Marvel movie since Endgame. I haven't watched any of them because like I always felt like they were going to ruin the franchise, and I would not watch it again. Like that was a good cut. Like it's it, and then I did not want them to ruin it for me. So I have not watched a movie since then.
That is incredible restraint, but also that's a good note to end on, and the fact that you can tie it to you having your own custom artwork of yourself in it. I do. Feel like that's the premium right there.
I do, yeah. It's kind of cool. It was really cool, and I actually had kids one year. They knew I love Marvel, so like they did like at our school they do these live like art things where they actually draw the pictures right there. They drew me as Thanos. I'll text you. I'll send it to you guys in the message that we have. I'll take a picture of it tomorrow. I have it in my classroom, so it's a big giant me as Thanos. Dude. So it scares kids when they walk in. That's the first impression they get of me as they walk in my classroom.
Well, it probably sets a good precedent. They'll be like, you should live in fear when you walk in here.
You should live in fear. I'm going to snap half of you away. That's how we roll here in the classroom.
That's awesome. Oh man. Well, Kevin, I think you're loose. I think you're ready to go. That was your first test.
Oh, okay.
The second one is these really hard hitting questions. So you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So in terms of, I know we were talking about parenting stuff a little bit. So what would you say is, 1 would be the most rewarding and 2 the most challenging thing when it comes to parenting?
Yeah. I think rewarding for me is just seeing them learn and grow and like do cool things. For example, and see the growth. Like my daughter, we put her in softball like when she was like 3.5, 4, and just t-ball, like stupid t-ball. They're out there, and she was very timid and she was a little nervous, but you could tell she liked it. But it took her a while to get out there by herself and do these things. And then we just started softball last week. And we pull up to the park, and she just ran away. Like as a 5-year-old, she's like, "Bye, Dad!" Like, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm your coach. You can't just run away. Like I'm coaching this damn team." And like she got out there and just hit, and like she was one of the more advanced kids out there. And it just showed like she had growth. Like, and we worked with her, like right, like as dads we do. Like we kind of work with her, but we don't push. Like I don't. Hey, you want to play? If not, no worries. So like I think for me, just seeing that growth and like how fast they go and how fast they pick up things. Challenging, I think sleep is definitely like my kids don't sleep very well. So like I think one biggest thing is my 2 girls don't sleep very well, but I would also say like teaching values, but also like trying, like one thing we're running into is my daughter's in kindergarten right now. My oldest is trying to teach them that like not everybody has the same values that we have as a family, like in their friends that they deal with too. Cause like she's dealing with a bully right now, and like in kindergarten, already dealing with a bully. Man. And I was like, and so trying to sit down and talk to her and say, like, we don't do that. Like we have empathy. We teach kids, like, we teach our kids like, hey, and I teach them the 3 T's. You talk to the person, you say, hey, like, this isn't how it should be. Then you tell someone, hey, this person's doing something to me. Then you tackle them. Then you do something. Like if something at a certain point, if it gets down to it, like I understand, like if you got to take it in your own hands or if they do something to you. But trying to teach them that idea of like, not everybody's going to like get raised like you do, or they have the same values, good or bad. And trying to like, for them to understand that and like how to maneuver that. I haven't gotten into it too much in terms of like friends and where the values come from and who they should hang out with. But that's been pretty challenging so far in kindergarten for her, is like trying to just teach her that not everybody's going to have the same values as us.
Oh man. So my son's 4.5, so he'll be not getting into kindergarten until next year as an older kid. But
yeah,
man, it's that's one of those things where I've thought about it, but I haven't, not the front of my mind thought about it apparently. Because I mean, thinking about that, I mean, it's preschool, that's enough of a thing, but then getting into kindergarten, it's bigger. It's a whole thing. Geez. All right, we have to end this now. I'm terrified.
It's just hard, man. It's hard to think about because you want to be like the all right, I'm gonna go talk to that dude's dad. Like I'm all right. Like if he bullying him, like I'm gonna, and then you have to say, okay, where do you interject? Where do you not? Where do you learn? Let them grow, and like you make tons of mistakes. That's definitely gonna happen too.
Yeah, that's the lesson. Work hard enough to make mistakes, and then ideally don't repeat those mistakes.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, say in terms of family stuff, work stuff, all that. How do you find work-life balance, especially if it's working family, but also it's content creation too? So it's that plus then some, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's tough. Like, I think you just have to, like, for me, one thing I do is like, there's days like no content days. There's days that I definitely have that, having a giant calendar of like when do we do things too, and having a good like for me, my wife's really good at like, hey, like making, because I'm one of those type A guys, but when I get into something, I go hard and like I go away. Like you saw the rookie guide. Like these are things that I can dive into. But sometimes my wife has to be like, hey, dummy, like you can't go too hard at this. Like you got to like, hey, we need you here. And so like having a supportive wife, but having someone that kind of keeps me even keel, level headed, like, hey, you can't do this. Definitely that. And then also like I have a schedule. And I just keep to the schedule. Like, hey, I know I'm doing a video here. And then you maximize your time. So like, for example, I teach, so I have first period prep. So I usually record all my videos at a certain time, like when I know I have prep and I can do it. Or it also, like I commute sometimes. If I carpool, I will cut up videos on my iPhone when I'm in the carpool. There's nothing else I'll be doing. I'll just be on my phone anyway. So like I just, record, get iMovie and cut it up. So like, to me, I just maximize as much time as I possibly can where I'm not taking away from my family, or like having that balance too, and having that kind of step away. Or another thing too, is like, I forced myself to buy the new Harry Potter game because I'm a big Harry Potter fan. And like, I haven't bought a video game in like 5 years. Like I have not like done that. And so like, I was like, no, I'm going to buy this. So after I finished the rookie guide, I was like, all right, we're going to buy this. And so I bought it, and I forced myself like for 30 minutes to an hour just to play it. Like, because it kind of gets you out of that mindset of like any of this, and you can just kind of dive into it. And for me, video games is a big part of my life growing up, football, kind of stuff. And so like, that's the way. Just make sure you have it.
Yeah. And, that's one thing where I kind of think of just like, before being a parent, I had my Xbox 360. I'm trying to think, or Xbox One. I guess at some point, like I just realized, I was like, oh, it's been a couple of months and I haven't touched it. Like I almost forgot I had it. And I was like, man, this is a far cry from what like the previous, 20 plus years of my life were, which was just like, I'm just going to play this thing every day. But I got to the point where I told my wife, I was like, I'm just going to trade this thing in or sell it. And I was like, I would say I'll regret it, but I was like, if I haven't played it in a couple of months, I really don't think I can rationalize keeping it. And then I think it was probably a couple years after that, I got another Xbox. But still, it's just, that used to be the thing of, like, hey, I'll have my time, I'll go do this. And it's like, it's still stuff to find that time just for yourself, just to kind of decompress.
Yeah, 100%. Like, and then you always feel like, I will say with content creation, you always feel like you're going to get left behind. and you like, oh, well, someone's doing this. And like, and I think it's really hard to be a content creator with kids. Like people underestimate that. And plus, like, there's a lot of content creators out there that are not full time, right? Like myself, like I'm not full time. I can't be full time because I have like, job and kids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so like trying to figure out that way to like, it's just really difficult. You got to make sure you have to leave yourself for yourself, because sometimes you can dive too far into this and then you're really in trouble. And then it becomes like a job, which should never feel like a job, but it might, And so it's a very, very hard thing to do. Yeah,
that's a couple of the things that I feel like I've heard so frequently in terms of one, support system for sure, because a lot of the people, if it's having families and having kids, it's like, yeah, I mean, as much as it could be, something that it's enjoyable and it's a hobby and that sort of thing, it's like, yeah, but it doesn't mean you're foregoing all the other stuff that you got in your life just to be like, oh, I've got a couple hours extra today, I'm just going to go ahead and do this content creation now. So
it's so hard. Yeah, you're right. It's one of those things you just got to try to figure out the best you can, and you're going to make mistakes. That's 100% going to happen.
Yeah. So, well, in terms of, like your journey, how did you first get into fantasy football, like content creation?
Okay. So I saw this question. It's funny. I was trying to think back. Like it happened because of COVID. We all had more time, and I was a teacher, and they kicked us out, and they said, hey, you got to go home. And so like I was sitting here and I was going stir crazy because I'm a very active person. I coached, I did all that stuff, and I was sitting in a house, man. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. And I've always played fantasy, and I've done like college football stuff, which is mainly the stuff that we talk about. So I've done it forever. And I told my wife, I remember this. I told her one day, like somebody was hiring, a site was hiring, and they wanted an article. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go write this article. So I told my wife, and this is before I even really had like a Mac or anything like that. I took a computer over to her grandparents' house, which is across the street from us. They rented out. And I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and just write this thing. And I wrote an article and I sent it in, and I got a thing back that said that I should probably never do content because it was that bad. And I was like, oh, okay. And so like I tell people this on purpose because, if I would have just quit there, I wouldn't be doing the things that I've been doing. Like I won the Tags Award and, created a company. I work for Football Guys now. It's kind of changed my family's life a little bit. And that just made me actually more pissed. I was like, no, I can do this. Like I'm better than this. And so I got my start. A couple just little sites gave me a shot. And during COVID, like 75 new fantasy sites popped up, and because everybody had time. And so I just home my stuff, and it was called Hammercast. And they let me just kind of, David Stidham, a big fan of David. Like David's a good guy, and he let me do whatever I wanted. He said, hey, you want to do a podcast? Go. And I remember my first ever video like this. I recorded on my freaking iPhone. I bought an iPhone holder, like almost like a selfie holder. And like it was like propped up, and then I had like pages typed, like just some stupid crap. But like that was my first ever podcast appearance. And like me and my buddies who we started with look back at that are still doing it, and we laugh because we're like, oh my God, we did not know what we're doing. But that's what it takes. It takes reps and stuff like that. But yeah, they just gave me a shot, and I just rolled with it, man. And I just kind of had some fun and still making dumb mistakes all the time. But like it was one of those things, like I wanted to do it. And it essentially like it replaced, like I had quit coaching because I had kids. So that year I was like, okay, I got young girls. I'm not gonna be one of those coaches that their kids don't know them. And then I was like, well, I can't just, and then my wife told me this, like, she's like, you can't just not do something because you're too crazy. Like you lose your mind and you need to go do something. So for me, like this is a hobby, but it's also a passion. So that's where it kind of derives from. And then I just went with it, and and you get opportunities along the way, and you just kind of go from there.
Yeah, man, I think certainly with any of the stuff that you and your cohorts do with the college football show, anything like that. I mean, the rookie draft guide, any of the Devy related stuff. It's like, you guys clearly know what you're talking about, but it's not something where it's so rigid and so forced. It's something that's sincerely just people that enjoy the content they're creating, but are just creating the content for the people that also happen to enjoy it as well. So that definitely comes across pretty clearly.
Yeah. I mean, really, man, like that's all it is. You know what I mean? Like it to me, like, I just love this stuff. Like and it's just a passion. Like I love college football, but I know that not everybody does. Like, so I always I try to explain this, like, cause I get a lot of people reach out to me like, how do you start? And I say, well, everybody has their first article they want to write. And then after that, it's like, oh, what do I do? And I think one thing that the space lacks is creativity. Like we see the same crap all the time. Like I enjoy this shit because it's different, right? Like, but we see the same, like how many sleeper articles do I need to read, man? Like I don't need to read but it clicks. Like, so here's the thing, like you have to decide pretty early on as a content creator, what are you going to be? Like, you can be a clickbait guy and you can go write the same damn article. Hey, here are the next Jamar Chase, or the next three, the next three guys here, or like, you can do that. Like, that's fine. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that because some people make livings like that. But what I always find is like, that's pretty soulless, and like, to me, like, if I'm going to get, like, we have a YouTube channel, the Debbie Row YouTube channel. We don't get a ton of views. Sometimes we get 10,000 views on a video. Sometimes it's 200, or sometimes it's 500. But like, to me, I just love talking about it. Like, I don't mind spending time doing graphics and editing and then putting it up. And if it gets 200 views, if I help 200 people, okay. If 150 think I'm stupid, okay. Like, but to me, like, that's where passion is from. Like, that's where I derive it from. And you can see, like, people aren't stupid. They know when someone's passionate or not. And I might be wrong. Like, I'm definitely wrong. Like, sometimes, like, there definitely is plays in that. But like, when people can connect with you, I think that's when you separate yourself a little bit of like, hey, I'm just some random ass dude that love fantasy. And it went from like, hey, I can connect with you. I'm normal. I am not smart. Like, if you ask anybody, like, I'm not analytical. Like, I don't do numbers. Like, I have a co-host that we do a Patreon only podcast for, Jay Stein. He throws out all these numbers at me, and I'm just like, yeah, that's cool, Jay. Like, put me the film, baby. Let me grind this film, because and that's just who I am. And some people like it, some people don't. But you got to find that passion. Like, soulless content will always be soulless, no matter what you do. Like, no matter where you work for. I've worked for fantasy pros, I've worked for football guys, I've worked for all those places, and soulless content is soulless content. Like, there is passion. And you know what, though? Sometimes passion content is 20 people will listen to it. Like, that's the reality, because a lot of the consumers don't like that. And like, that's been a struggle at football guys sometimes. I'm like, oh, I love this. And then like, they're like, well, they might not like that. And it's like, oh, okay, well, then I'll just go do my thing at the Debbie Royale YouTube channel. If you tell me what you want, which is good, they do great work, but like, I understand that that's not for their consumers, but my consumers might like being weird and trying something different. Like I did a mock draft. And if I'm talking too much, just tell me to shut the hell up. But
I'd love to hear it. Keep going.
I did this Debbie mock draft, and I included every single player, Dynasty and Debbie combined. So like, and no one does that. And I did it. And we got like 3 people signed up for our Patreon because they're like, hey, no one's doing that type of content. And it's like, oh, okay. So it does work. It's just, you have to have a goal. Like, what is your goal? Like mine, I'm content where I'm at. Some people will literally kill someone for like a $25,000 full-time job in fantasy. And like, I wouldn't do that, because that to me, just, it defeats the purpose. Like, I am very content with who I am as a creator and what I'm here for. And I think if you have that, you're going to be just fine. I think it's the people who kind of don't have that identity, and they think like, oh, I'm going to be rich, or I'm going to have all these followers and all that stuff. I think that's when you can get muddled. And that's when you get really disappointed with wherever, if you're not at the level that you think you should be.
Yeah, I mean, aside from, just hearing like, parenthood stuff and just kind of getting to connect with people, I feel like one of my favorite things about doing this in the first place is the fact that every time I feel like I hear a slightly nuanced answer and kind of a piece of like what you were saying with how you start, it's, you kind of are picking your road in terms of, you could be the person who's, just, you have that template where you more or less just update it every single week or every single whatever. Yeah. I know, like when it was, when I was getting started, and I've never been a writer. I've never, I'm someone who going through like math was my thing, not analytics for fantasy football, ironically enough, but just writing. Writing was never a natural thing for me. And I'd done it a couple of times, and, it was starting out like, well, what makes sense? Now, I did a couple of random things of did like a Davis Mills article. Can't believe that didn't catch on. But then I peppered in, like, oh yeah, I'll do waiver or something. I'll do like, oh yeah, this will be a weekly thing. This will be great. And none of it was meant to be like, oh yeah, someone's going to see this, but it's just to kind of, flex those muscles a little bit. And I kind of got through and I'm like, I don't know that this is something I could sustain, in the sense of like, I'm doing it. And I'm like, it's not that I can't do it, but if you're asking me like, would I, the joy at some point is going to be just steadily stripped away once I get to week whatever. And I'm just like, I think I probably said for everybody to add this guy 3 weeks ago. It's like, whatever, I'll just cut paste and there we go. But yeah. I love to hear that, where it's like, it's people that, it isn't your full-time thing, but it's more than a hobby. So it's something that you care about enough to, stay true to what you think is right, or at least what you enjoy and what you want other people to enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you have to keep it fresh, right? Like what you just said is perfect. Like, I'm trying to think of what I can say not to get canceled. Like, so I worked for a site where it was like, here is 50 articles, whatever you want. And then like, it was like, then the next week or the next month, they would send out the same type of articles. And then, so you're just regurgitating the same thing over and over again. And for some, they're okay with that because that's just what they know, and they have that. But for me, I was like, man, this is like, it got to a point, like, and I'll be honest, like, no one really knows this. I almost walked away. Like, I was kind of like, I don't want to do this anymore because this is not a passion. Like, what am I doing? I looked in the mirror and was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I don't need to do this. So like, why? And so like, I really took a step back. And that's why when I got hired by Football Guys, it was almost to the year, like they saved me from quitting because then they allowed me to be like, hey, you have this creativity, you can do this. Like, and so that, I was very close. So if you're out there too, if you listen to this and you're in that same position, reach out to me, just DM me. Like, I can tell you how I got through it and I can kind of tell you from that. So don't think you're alone because we're all kind of in that same category sometimes.
No, I love to hear that. I know that, being able to persevere, and it's tough because if it, again, it's so weird calling it a hobby just because it's like that highlights the enjoyment of it. But I feel like, everything that's kind of layered within it of like, well, if it's a hobby enough, it almost becomes a job. And it's like, but it can't be a job because then it's too serious. And then it's, it kind of takes away the joy, but it's a delicate balance there.
It is. And you got to be professional about it. So it is kind of like when you get into a site, like I know everything I put out. Football Guys has almost 1 million subscribers to their email. So 1 million people are going to be reading that. Like, I got to make sure it's on point. You can't have typos. It can't have stuff like that. But then you also got to be able to have some little bit of fun. But that's why I have my side stuff, because I can have my fun in my side stuff. And that's where it comes.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned my Twitter, I've learned, is just riddled with spelling errors. And despite having the edit feature, I'll like look over something, I'm like, yep. And then I think the other day I was trying to type a skill set and I apparently said skillet. And then someone just responded with like a skillet of like people making like eggs and sausage. And I'm like, I said skillet. I didn't say skill set.
Yep.
But well, in terms of the fun that you kind of had talked about a little bit earlier, how was the process of creating the 2023 rookie guide? I know it's still going to be a couple more iterations of it, but just kind of the inception of it and kind of getting into it with the version 1.0. How was that process with Jeff and Christian?
Oh, it was awful. It was a lot of work. So like, if you guys don't know, the rookie guide, 120 profiles, essentially 120 profiles. And we did a lot of stuff. Like, so, it was completely free, the first one, if you want to go check it out, but player comps, scouting report, quick intro on what they are, team fits. And and all the graphics for us like that, that mostly Christian, he crushes it. And a little bit of me and Jeff, and like, we created all of that. I mean, it took like, and this is the thing. It takes weeks, months. Like we've been developing that thing since like November, and we just didn't know who players to put in and stuff like that. I mean, and it's long hours. Like, and I think the process is like, all right, like we kind of split up positions. All right, who are you gonna get? Like, who are you gonna be the master at? All right, then so like, for example, go through. Let me pick one. Like one of the freaking quarterbacks. Give me like like Anthony Richardson. All right, so let's do Anthony Richardson. All right, let's do the scouting. And then I go through all 22 and I kind of do my preliminary scouting on him in my pages. And then, okay, so I type that up. All right, let's go a little bit of background. And then you got to go through, all right, player comp. All right, so now this is where it gets hard. Like, Jeff's better because he's way older than me, so he's seen a lot more players. Like, I'm really bad at comps. Like, I struggle with them, and I'm like, all right, what makes the most sense? Like, now, then how do you comp them? Do you comp them based on like ceiling or college? So like, how do you, like, that's a hard one. Like, so we comped Anthony Richardson and Cam Newton. But to me, I looked at it from like a ceiling perspective. Like, okay, if he does hit his ceiling there, this is what he could be. And then you go through all of the other process. So like, one player in the guide at least took, in terms of just putting it on there, not the background stuff, at least almost 2 hours. So when you times that by 120 players, I mean, you're putting in like that last week before our deadline, me and Jeff and Christian were up until like 3 a.m. Them was 6 a.m. Them 3 a.m. me, and then I'd be up to 3. They're 3 hours ahead of me. They're on the East Coast, so I'm on the West Coast. And like, we'd be talking in our group chat until like 2 a.m. and them at 5 a.m., man, like in 4 a.m. grinding this thing and getting it done. And I think that's what separates sometimes getting stuff done, right? Like people aren't willing to do that. And like that's with kids and that's with other stuff. And it was a lot of love and time that went into it. And the next one's going to be just the same. And in the third version, like we were talking about pre-show, like that's going to be deep. And so it just really comes from like you having that, but we wouldn't be able to do that without having our background in college football either. Like we already know these guys. And so, and I always tell people this, like, they're like, oh, I want to get into college football. I want to be a Debbie writer. You know, it takes about 3 years before you're comfortable even like talking about some of these guys. And like, I'm not even that comfortable. Like CFF guys, those dudes are crazy, man. Those dudes know like the Akron offensive coordinator. Bro, I don't know the Akron offensive coordinator. I don't care about the Akron, but they do. And like, they know even more. They're deeper at it, right? And so like and it goes so deep. And so like, you really got to just like I said, find your process. Hey, this is where we're at. We know these rookies are coming in, so we'll really dive into that. And you're still going to miss. Like, we're going to miss on somebody. Zach Evans is someone we really like, but we don't know if the NFL is going to like him. But the whole process of it takes a while. Like, you're talking 2 hours at least before you get in the background of just one player. And that's a lot of work. And some, you know, they don't want to do that.
Well, I think I can comfortably speak for the rest of the fantasy community when I can say thank you. It was definitely worth it. I mean, just the sheer detail and everything. I know it's the layers to it as more information is coming out. It's going to keep evolving from there. But I remember when I had first seen it, I started going through it and I was just like, once I got past a certain number in every position, I was like, who? I mean, when you get that deep, that's not something that you're going to see if people are putting out rookie draft guides. It's just going to be most of the people that everyone knows, and then maybe a small handful of kind of sleepers, if you will. But I mean, just the depth that you all went into in terms of the number of people in there. But like you're saying, I mean, the presentation of everything, this is probably a weirdly nerdy thing to say, but just formatting and everything, I feel like is something that's so critical, because being able to have all of that information coherently on one page, and still, you know, it's not too jumbled up, it's spread out well. I feel like that's something that, you know, it allows you, all three of you that have a Debbie and a good college football understanding, and like, you know what you're talking about, but how does it translate onto, you know, a piece of media that everyone else is going to digest? And I feel like you guys did a great job really pulling that all together.
And that was Christian. I mean, everybody needs to know that. Like, Christian, he dived it all in there. I mean, we had our things like, hey, we'd probably put it here, but like, yeah, you have to, everything matters. Like, how it's produced, what is it content like? And like, that's why us three work well together, because we just do it. Like, Jeff is ADHD. He's got ADHD really bad. And that dude just like, hey, this is how it goes. This is how it goes. Christian is very detail oriented. And I'm just kind of there. I'm like that have you seen that gif of like the guy, Nick Cage, and the other guy that does The Last of Us, where the guy's like, it's going around right now, and the guys are all like super stressed? That's Christian and Jeff. And me, I'm just that dumb dog, like, hey, we're doing this. This is fun. Isn't this great, guys? Like, that's our relationship, but that's what it processes into. And we get serious and we get it done, and we hope it helps you guys to win your leagues. That's the goal.
I know, and that's funny, just kind of talking about like that would be the dynamic behind what you guys collectively create, but it kind of culminates in what that rookie draft guide is, which is only one representation of kind of what you guys have done together, but it's a good representation of like how you're talking about how you all work together for a final product. So
yeah, and it's good to show us like how we do it, because it you know, it's not easy. Like, people think it's easy, and then like people will like, you know, well, it's not that it's not easy. There's things that can be easy, but it's just, you have to be consistent. Like, consistency matters. You got to find your people. Like, I don't stress this enough. And you're going to get haters, and you're going to get people like, there's people that I grew up that in a space with that, you know, they don't talk to me anymore. And it's not that like we don't have that relationship. It's just, you get to a point where you got to find people that are willing to match your energy. So if you start a brand and a company, you got to find those people. And me and Christian and Jeff are just the perfect. Now, we don't always agree. Like, me and Jeff fight all the time. You'd be funny. Like, me and him are like, Christian's the middle guy, and me and Jeff are fighting all the time about like, hey, no, don't do this. Like, and what are you talking about? Like, stop tweeting about stupid crap, Jeff. Like, there's like, me and him, like, we definitely argue and do that stuff a lot. But we all like, we love it, and we work well together. We're a good fit. Like, and those are my guys. And until I retire, they're going to always be my guys, no matter what. Like, and I think that's where you get into it, where like, you know, we're going to have some fun doing it, and we're just going to make some noise, and whatever happens, and we'll see how it goes.
I love it. Well, say final question for you here. So oftentimes it'll be, what would be one thing that you recommend? But I've learned that kind of a twist on this might be, even more impactful. So what would be one thing not to do if you're someone kind of getting into the fantasy content creation space?
Man, relationships are key. So like one thing I would definitely say is like, and Joe Bryant from Football Guys talks about this all the time. He always talks about your Twitter page is your resume. So if you have a Twitter and you're a social media account, and how you act and treat people on that account is really determining whether companies are going to hire you. So there's lists out there. Like companies have lists of, hey, this guy treats people like crap, or this woman treats people like crap on Twitter. This is how their social media is, and we don't want that kind of person at our site. So just be cognizant of that. Having a profile picture helps. Like having, like, if you want to do that, if you don't, it's okay. Like if you just want to be in there, but doing those things matter. But that's what I tell people too. Like they always ask me for advice, and like, what company should I go with? I always tell them just to follow the boss and follow the people who write for that company, and then turn on notifications. So every time they tweet, you see what they say. And if that doesn't fit you, like if that's not a culture fit, if that's something that like you're like, oh, I don't like how they treat kind of people, I don't like how they kind of say, not saying that they do that, but if they did, like you could be like, hey, because you're not going to want to create content for those type of companies, because again, the soul thing, right? Like Joe Bryant is one of the nicest human beings possible from football. This dude is, if they created a nice human being in a lab, Joe Bryant is that guy. Like, and he cares, and he's there for you. And that I love making content for Joe Bryant because I don't want to let him down. Like he's that good of a guy. But there's also companies where you're like, hey, I don't like how they treat people. Why would I work for them? Right. So like it goes both ways. And then you got to just know, very cognitive. Now I can, and I'm not perfect at it either. Like, I've said some things on social media I wish I could take back. And I wish I could be like, I definitely should have caused that back. And I've called people names and stuff. But then you get leeway, right? As you start building up equity. I call it equity. And then every once in a while you let one fly on social media. But overall, like, just be careful with how you interact with people, because you never know. All it takes is one thing. Like Joe Bryant, he followed me after I had put out like something for fantasy, or I think it was like Hammercast, like that original site. And he just was like, hey, I like this. Nice job. And I didn't hear from him for like a year. Like I was like, oh, that's cool. Joe Bryant followed me. And I didn't really like whatever. And then a year later, he offered me a job. And he's like, oh, I really like, and it took me a year for him to like, basically, he's like, yeah, I was just seeing what you were doing. And it took a year. So like, it takes a long time to like find that. So just be very cognitive of like your presence on social media. It's like any job, but that's what I would say.
Yeah. That's one thing that, I joke to my wife, because the fact that the iteration of this podcast started as audio only, but the fact that I'm doing a podcast is almost the antithesis of me as a person. I'm not well, she might think I talk too much, but I'm not the person who it's talking all the time. I do talk fantasy football all the time, so that might be the only thing that makes sense here. But just thinking, like, I didn't have a Twitter before this. I think I had one when I was like a kid and everything, but didn't use it in like a decade. But the fact of like getting into social media and being able to kind of not just like market yourself, but it's, share your thoughts, which is, I guess, in a way marketing yourself. But, getting into Twitter and just seeing the world that is fantasy football, fantasy Twitter, just kind of stumbled into it just because, not being on it initially and seeing, any notable sports update fantasy thing is going to be like, if it's on Bleacher Report, it's Bleacher Report quoting a tweet from somebody or something like that. Yeah. So basically going straight to the source and saving myself a couple of minutes. And just, I remember the first week of like getting on there and like starting following people. And I'm like, I can see how people get lost in this. I mean, there's so much content to take in. It's definitely, really trying to find your people you do want to follow, and learn from, and kind of find your voice and how you want to interact with people. I think that's definitely a great tool and a great piece of advice.
Yeah. And just know, be cognizant, and just know you're human. You're going to make mistakes, and like, you see that, and just be you, no matter what it is, just be you, but also like, just be respectful. It's not hard to be respectful. Just be respectful.
Yeah. Well, guest always gets the last word. And for you, this can be a shout out. This can be a quote. This can be a cheers. I don't think anyone's ever utilized this one yet. I added it insult, if you want to throw an insult to anyone's way, but that might be negative. So maybe you don't want to do that. That was a test.
Oh man. Okay. Actually, I did see something today. I saw something. I like Gary V. I'm a Gary V guy. Every once in a while, and he had like a little it was on TikTok. I'm too old to be on TikTok. I'm sorry, but I was on there, and it was a clip, and he said there's gonna be haters, and there's gonna be people like, oh, screw my haters, I don't care about them, and he said that you should look at it in a different light. Like you should feel bad for them, because in reality, like they complain, like when if someone's initial response is to like tear someone down if they do something good. Like I see that a lot in this space, like, oh, I got hired here, and then you hear like, oh, well, why did you get hired? And it's like, if that's your first initial response, you need to really reflect and say, why am I saying that? Like, what are they doing that I'm not doing? And I think, and Gary Vee talked about that today. Like, if they would channel their energy into that content creation or something like that, they might be at the place that they want to be at. And I think that's one way I've looked at it too recently, because I've had some things happen in the space, and it's like, you know what, like, we put in the work. We just talked about how much work we put into it, like the guide and all that stuff. Like if these people like that are, because we're all going to have trolls, but if these people like if you're analysts and those things, and your first initial thought is to tear someone down, look and say like, well, what could I be better? What can I do to like, am I willing to put in that work? And if you're not willing to put in that work, then I don't think you should be a negative person or somebody. And it's very easy just to keep scrolling, right? Like it's very easy just to be like, oh, or just like, hey, good job. Like, or awesome, or congrats, like even if they don't like it or whatever, like you just like, that's how I take it. Like, so if you're an analyst in the space, like, and we all go through it, there is a time where you'll be on this space, like, why do they get opportunity? Why do this? And that's where you ruin a lot of relationships. And so you got to be very careful and cognizant of that. And like, there's relationships I'll never get back because of that. And so I'm just trying to warn you guys, like, just, hey, everything, just build each other up. And it's hard to do. And people will say you can't do it, but just, oh, that's great. Awesome. I'm so happy for you. Like stuff like that. And I think that's what I would take away from this is just be good people. Like little Ted Lasso. Okay. Just be a good person. Okay. Be curious, not judgmental, but also like, don't tear people down, because this stuff's hard. Doing this stuff routinely, consistently is hard, and just be there for each other.
Yeah, I think something I've also noticed in the space that kind of speaks to that a bit is, the amount of people that, everyone has their own kind of little groups, and they have their own podcasts, they have their own, whatever that they'll more frequently do their stuff on there. But the amount of people that kind of bounce around and collaborate in different ways, and it's genuine and authentic. It's not some sort of, hey, let's create a crossover and like you get subscribers here, I get subscribers there. That would be a benefit, I'm sure, but it's not really like the reason for doing that sort of thing. And I think there's a number of episodes ago, but I had Joe Pepe on, and he had said, I think the phrase was, the rising tide lifts all ships. I want to say is that something kind of to that effect. Yeah. I'm not a philosophizer, but that kind of thing. Just thinking like, hey, there is a lot of space within the space, for lack of a better term, and if it's a lot of people, if you think about, if someone else is getting that good opportunity, it doesn't mean that maybe at that very same company in that same type of role, you could get that same opportunity a year later. Kind of like you were talking about when I was finding out a year later that Joe Bryant was maybe kind of in the shadows, just kind of seeing how you were doing. So,
and that's the reality, man. Like, and you never know when that opportunity is going to come. Like, you just never do. And it will come. And for anybody out there, if you ever needed help or advice or anything like that, just get in my DMs. And I don't know all the answers, and I'm definitely not perfect, but I'm willing to kind of help you. So, just and because I never had that. I never had like someone like, hey, like it was always competitive to me, and like, shoot, I'll give you all my secrets. I don't know most, but I'll give it to you, and I'll help you get there. And that's just the dad in me. That's just someone that likes to help people out and just be there for people.
I love to hear it. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, slide into Kevin's DMs. I'm not going to ask what you say. Just go for it. All right. But Kevin, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.